Hello, welcome. It is Tuesday night and I'm here with you. I'm experiencing darkness outside because it is dark now this time of night, but used to not be so dark this early, but that's the way it goes. I am enjoying a nice sunny day here in the Bay, and I'm here for your questions. Mainly my life has been just mostly doing a lot of yelling. Well, not. I'm yelling internally. Externally, I'm not yelling. I'm trying to be very calm and polite. Yelling at people about where is somebody's book and whether they can find it, and answering emails, and it's super fun. We'll get there one way or another, but I am getting emails today and yesterday that people are getting their Common Sense Labs books and getting excited emails, people saying that it showed up in the mail. Only one has appeared to be damaged so far, and we're getting them another book. Happens. It's the U.S. Postal Service. If you guys know, I know the U.S. Postal Service is not always, they're great for many, many reasons, price included. But yeah, it is what it is. So if you don't know what I'm talking about and you don't know who I am Kim Howerton. It's nice to be here with you. I do this most Tuesdays. I am a health coach. I've lost over 100 pounds on a ketogenic and then a low carbohydrate diet. I talk about food, I do recipes, and I have a new book out with Dr. Ken Berry about common sense blood labs, which is about what kind of blood labs the average human should be getting on the regular. So, and I'm not just food, also health in general. By the way, people have asked, and I'll just say it publicly here. I don't do private blood lab consultations because all I would do is charge you to read to you from the book. And that's a waste of your money. Just get the book and read it, and hopefully that'll help. So yeah. Hey, Lover, nice to have you. I have my Target sweater on. I like a good Target sweater. I appreciate having you guys here. So I will just share, I'll be honest. I have a podcast. It's called Keto Life Sport. Keto Life Sport coming out this week will say this, but I've been stressed, super, super stressed out. And it's been a stressful season. And I've been having to make some choices about stress management. And occasionally on a Tuesday night, I decide that it would be better for me to hang out with my boyfriend or kind of take it easy. And it might not always be the best decision. Sometimes I may just be overwhelmed by the idea of clothing and makeup. But a couple of times I have been off the past few weeks. And so I appreciate you sticking with me, even when I'm a little bit inconsistent now and again. Yeah, what I talked about on the podcast this week, that's coming out this week, is that I was in an attempt. I was like, oh, I want to lose like 3 or 4 pounds over this holiday season. Not a lot, just 3, just a few. And enter the new year feeling like that. Honestly, it was like I have a pair of pants I really like, and they're a little uncomfortable, and I want to be able to wear those pants. And so yeah. So, but what happened was I'm maxed out. I'm stressed out. My stress bucket is full. And I have a rule. If my stress bucket is full, I am not in a deficit. If I'm trying to be in a deficit, I'm not going to do that. It's just too much for the stress bucket. So I'm eating at maintenance. It's helping a lot. Life is a lot better. So that's what I'm talking. I talked a little bit about that. I got a question from Lisa. So this is the labs, pre-edited labs book, but it's pretty similar. So she said, Common Sense Labs question, page 60. We're doing some editing here. I can't guarantee. Next time I'm hiring an editor. All right, page 60. Common Sense Labs question, page 60, total protein. Protein total. I see it. It says milligrams per deciliter. Is it supposed to be grams per deciliter? That is a great question. I'm going to put a little sticky note on that and double check with Ken. Where are my sticky notes? I'm at my desk, so sticky notes. I'll put a little sticky note there. And I will double check with Kim. Because I don't know. I could look on LabCorp as well, but I will put a note on there. Let me get a pen. Protein grams or milligrams. All right, I got my sticky note. And if we have things like that, I'll send an email out to the people that bought it. I have an email list of all the people that bought it. And I've sent updates when the books were being sent out when they were late. And so I will send that out as well. Christy says, my stress is maxed out and I don't know how to manage. Christy, I hear you. So for me, it's like, okay, for stress, I like to think of it as a bucket. Like we have a stress bucket. Your stress bucket is some size. This is a cup, but you get the picture. Pretend this is a cup Element sent me. I put them away. I'll have to bring them out. Element has a new flavor. They're selling a bundle that's 3 chocolate. I guess you don't have to see it. It's the chocolate medley. You get 10 packets of chocolate salt, 10 packets of mint chocolate salt, and 10 packets of caramel chocolate salt. So good. And so that medley is available now. If you want to go to Drink Element, DRINKLMNT.com/Kim Howerton and buy with that link. I would appreciate it. I get a little bit of love from the Element people. You don't pay anything extra. And yeah, so apparently that the chocolate salts are available at the end of November on their own. But if you buy a bundle, they have this thing where if you buy 3, you get the 4th free. And if you buy a bundle, you can get the chocolate salts now. They're great for making lattes with or sprinkling in your little toppings on things. So very tasty. Anyway, just that this reminded me of it. All right, back to the topic. So let's pretend this is a bucket. So let's say this is your stress bucket. And some of us have a big bucket. Some of us have a small bucket, right? We all have a little bit of a different capacity for stress. But right now, you have a certain size bucket. And what can you do over time to increase the size of your bucket? Yeah, you can do things that over time will increase the size of your bucket. Things like meditation, therapy, that kind of thing, right? But right now, like today, all you can really do is put things in the bucket and take things out of the bucket. And what am I talking about? Well, so we have a certain amount of room in our bucket. And once the bucket gets full to the top, it's going to spill over. Bad things will happen, right? That's when you smack people, yell at people, move out of your house, leave your husband for no good reason, right? It's like just you're done. You're done. You've reached the top. And so you can kind of just envision that this bucket, for some people, this bucket, like they live their whole life with it almost full. They're just, because what do we got? We got like the job and the kids and the commute and money and right. So like it's just we're living life on the edge. And those are the people where you're like, what's wrong with her? Right? Because anything, it's just one little extra drop in there and you're done. Done. And so we need to think about our stress bucket. And we need to be aware of things that add to it and things that can subtract from it. And what we can control and what we cannot control. So one of the things I always look at is, okay, I can control my food choices, right? I can control if I am trying to be in a deficit. Am I trying to lose weight? That kind of thing. And so if I know that when I'm restricting I don't mean like eating like crap, because that takes you back in the stress direction. There's a optimal way of eating where you're satisfied, happy, getting enough food, but not eating in a way that because eating crappy all the time just makes your bucket smaller. If you're improperly nourished, you don't have a bucket. You know what else makes your bucket smaller? Not sleeping. It's like this was your bucket. No, now this is your bucket. Smaller. See? Smaller. just gives you a smaller bucket. Just all the stuff's still in there, but the bucket's smaller. So everything, not sleeping. So we have to do all the things that can maximize the size of our bucket while simultaneously choosing what's in our bucket at any time. And whenever the stress is high, we have to do like an audit, like it's tax time audit, like you're auditing your budget. What is in my bucket that does not need to be in my bucket? Right. And I was listening to a podcast today. It was a podcast on finances. It was a financial podcast. I don't know if Ramit Sethi. It's a good podcast. And he was talking to a couple who were like super stressed out. And now some of you will be like, it would be nice. They're wealthy, like they have money, and they bought a vacation property. But the vacation property is way more expensive than they thought it was going to be, both in terms of time and energy and money. And they then also were like, well, it won't be expensive because we'll rent it out. But they didn't take into account how much time it was going to take to rent it out. And so by the end of, not to give it away, but by the end of the podcast, they decided to sell the property, even though they were going to lose a fair amount of money to do so, because they realized it would make them saner to get rid of it. It would like just cross off like 25 things on their stress list. And so doing an audit of all the things that you carry. Now, you can't give away your children. But maybe you could figure out a way to get a babysitter a couple hours a week, or trade childcare with somebody in your life. Hey, I'll take your kids 2 days a week after school. You take my kids 2 days a week after school. Something, right? Find a way to make a little more room in your bucket. And so we always have to think about the bucket. So that's my tip for today. So if you're trying to lose weight in a time where your bucket is full, just don't. Just try and maintain your weight for a while. Then you can change to the bucket. When you make a little room in the bucket, you can go back to the thing. Robin asked, is the new cookbook more low carb or keto or a combination? Congratulations. I know it'll be a great success. Thanks, Robin. It's more keto. But there's one recipe in there where I was like, if you have room in your carb budget, throw an apple in here, right? Which is not exactly keto, but by the time, if you had a slice of this thing, I think it was the Kugel recipe, it's like 10 grams of carbs. It's not crazy, but it was an optional ingredient. You didn't have to put that in there. So there are a few things in the cookbook. This is our holiday table. Nisha and I wrote this cookbook. Actually, we started it years ago. We had it out years ago. We doubled its size, and we also made it available to buy in a physical book. So that is on the website. I'll put the links in here afterwards, but if you go to kimhowerton.com/books, so kimhowerton.com/books, or go to Kim Howerton and then look for the word books in the library, and then go there. There are 4 books listed. One is the Common Sense Labs book. One is 2, and then 3 are cookbooks, one of which is called Our Holiday Table. That's the one that's new with Nisha. And so we call it holiday keto, which is basically we're not giving you carb counts. I wouldn't really worry if it goes a little bit high on your carb count, but these are definitely keto recipes, if that makes sense. So it's definitely more keto, but if you add a few more vegetables, it's more low carb. We're not splitting hairs on some holiday recipes, but it does not have regular flour or oats or that kind of stuff in it. It's all things that a keto person would probably choose to eat. So hopefully that helped. If you go to the page I said, kimhowerton.com/books, and then go to Our Holiday Table, you can see on the page where you can buy the book that there's a table of contents. So you can see what the recipes are. And the other thing I want to say is if you're trying to get the book for Thanksgiving, it's probably a little late. You might get lucky, but it's a little late for the physical book. But we offer, if you want to upgrade to get both the physical and the digital, there's a check box there that you can get. So that's that. Also, if you have the original book and you want to upgrade to the new book, this is so to go from old digital to new digital. We will be happy to give you a discount on the new book. So just email me, Kim at theketonis.com. I'll put all this in the notes after the call. And I will send you a code to get 50% off the price so that you can essentially, that pays you back for the first book. There you go. Wendy says, oh, I see you, Cheryl. I'll come back. Wendy says, why is my glucose going up eating carnivore? I've never been diabetic. So Wendy, I would say, how much is it going up? Is it like going up in response to meals? Is it going up in overall? Like, is your fasting glucose higher? When you say your glucose is going up, can you give me a little more context? And I'll say, I'm not a doctor, simply pointing people in directions to get good medical advice from after we chat. I'm not giving any medical advice directly. Cheryl says, when I go keto, I can't stop peeing all night and it stresses out my adrenals and I'm exhausted and I wind up going 2 to 3 times a night. I do have an adrenal issue, doing lots of salt, nothing helps. What can I do? All right. So what you're experiencing is extreme diuresis, which just means a lot of peeing. And when we go into ketosis, we have a period of time where we diurese a lot more as our body drops more of the water weight, as our insulin goes down. The peeing doesn't stress out your adrenals. It's other things might be stressing out your adrenals though. And I would imagine that you're exhausted if you're getting up 4 times a night to pee. So totally makes sense. Some people do say that having extra salt before you go to bed without extra water, just, an extra shot of salt can help a little bit with this issue. But ultimately, if you're already having adrenal issues and maybe you're seeing a doctor about that, you could talk to them about a medication that I cannot remember the name of, but there is a medication. So one of the things that happens, this is where you can tell I'm not a doctor. Our body produces a hormone in sleep that suppresses the need to pee. And it is how some of us end up staying asleep. By the way, do you know it's perfectly normal to get up 1 or 2 times a night to pee once you're past your teens and 20s? It's pretty normal. Doesn't mean anything that's a problem. But if you get up and you can't go back to sleep, that's a problem. And if it's 4 times a night, that's a problem. But anyway, go to your doctor and tell them about this issue that you're having, that you're peeing all the time. And there is a medication that you can take that suppresses the need to pee. And talk to your doctor about that. Terry says, without diagnosing, what is your experience with clients who lose a lot of weight having... Okay, I'm trying to interpret this. Oh yeah, aldosterone. There you go. I have low aldosterone. Yeah. You're definitely gonna have to work with your doctor on that. The aldosterone is central. Terry says, okay, so back to Terry. So I think I'm trying to get what you're asking is I don't think you're asking about people who have gallbladder issues going keto. I think you're asking about people who lost a lot of weight and then they start having gallbladder issues. Is that the question you're asking, Terry? Because that's not uncommon. So people who have rapid weight loss often have gallbladder issues. It's pretty common, and that's unrelated to keto. People not keto also have gallbladder issues when they've lost a lot of weight. So one of the things that can happen when we don't eat as much, so you have these periods of rapid weight loss, your gallbladder, even if you're keto, your gallbladder might not be having as much exercise as it needs. It's not secreting as much bile because you're eating less. And so it's not at all uncommon. Okay, Tara says, context, vomited twice in the past 2 weeks. No pain or other issues, vomited, nothing else. Doctor I work with thinks it's gallbladder from a large amount of weight loss. Interesting. Okay, it might be. It would definitely be something I would get an ultrasound and get your gallbladder checked, because you don't want it to suddenly descend upon you with pain. Generally speaking, you would be having some abdominal pain aside from the vomiting. So I would definitely get checked out by your PCP. I don't have a lot of this experience, Terry. Uh, I think that losing weight while keto is a little more protective of the gallbladder because it does allow the gallbladder to get more exercise than it does on a low fat diet. But it is not uncommon that people who've lost massive amounts of weight do seem to develop some gallbladder issues. But it's not, it's actually, I can say that it's none of my clients have ever had that happen, that they've told me about anyway. But it's definitely the symptoms you're having, if that was, if that's happened twice so far, I would get it checked out. I would get it checked out. It could be nothing, or it could be something, or it could be nothing to do with the gallbladder, but you're going to be really glad that you got it checked out. So I would get it checked out. Generally speaking, the symptoms of gallbladder, they can be a little bit confusing, but there's usually some physical pain, like intense pressure. It can be in your back. It can be in where your gallbladder is. But it is painful. But there can be some things that are asymptomatic. Like back in the day when I had a gallbladder issue, I had my gallbladder out like over a decade ago. But when I had gallbladder issues, they were presenting like gastritis, like upset stomachs and like bad breath, like burping. So I wasn't getting the intense pain, but I was getting like stomach aches. So, they can present sort of atypically, but if you're having a true attack, that's very painful. I would just get it checked out. Thanks, Terry. Terry says there are only 14 likes on this video so far. So people, like the video. I appreciate it. You can also give me stars and things like that if you feel so moved. Appreciate it. Let us see what else. Okay. Wendy says, yes, 2 hours after meals, it's in the 90s throughout the day, and fasting is in the mid 80s, and fasting insulin went from a 3 to a 4.9. Okay. If your glucose is in the 90s throughout the day and your fasting glucose is in the mid 80s, then I think you have nothing to worry about. Fasting insulin about your blood sugar. I don't have other things to worry about. Blood sugar. And your fasting insulin going from a 3 to a 4.9, also nothing to be concerned about. Fasting insulin can be a little from one day to another. If you don't get as much sleep, it can go up and down a little bit. Both of those are very healthy numbers, and I wouldn't worry about it. So if you were like, because I've heard people say this happened, that they went like they were like their fasting insulin was, their fasting glucose was like in the 80s, and then it stayed in the 80s most of the time, and then they went carnivore and it bumped up to the 90s, even going up to 100 or something every once in a while. Still not a problem. Not a problem. Yay, David's lab book arrived. Woohoo! I'm almost as relieved as all of you. I'm going to tell you. Maria says, I reversed my type 2 diabetes, but my blood sugar is going up on carnivore 1 meal a day from 90 up to 130. That's more of note. I noticed that you said that you're doing carnivore OMAD. I don't tend to recommend OMAD, to be perfectly honest, at least not most of the time. I think that eating two times OMAD 1 meal a day, for anybody that doesn't know, two 2 meals a day. I think 2 times of eating a day is a better idea than 1 time for a couple of reasons. 1, 2 protein feedings are better than 1 protein feeding in terms of its ability to optimize muscle protein synthesis in your body. 2, so if you had 90 grams of protein 1 time a day or 45 grams of protein 2 times a day. By the way, I'm not saying that's the protein number for you. I'm just doing some math. You would get better benefit from the 2 meals 45 than 1 meal of 90 grams of protein. Also, I'm not saying that protein is wasted in that 90 grams all at once, but it doesn't do as many good things. You're not allowing it to properly multitask. And so doing it twice is going to be better. Also, OMAD does seem to be connected to higher blood sugars. They did a study on a group of people doing OMAD versus 3 meals a day, and they actually found higher average blood sugars in the OMAD group, especially it was either at night or in the morning. Anyway, but the blood sugar control was worse in the OMAD group. The second, I think that's mostly because if you're doing OMAD, you have to eat a pretty big man, right? That meal has to be pretty big, and that's a lot for your body to handle. And so splitting that up into two is good. So I prefer people to have 2 meals a day, at least 4 hours apart, to optimize their body's milieu for protein synthesis. Now, if you're doing OMAD, everything's going swimmingly, your life works great, you're super happy about everything. I'm not telling you to change what's working, but in general, if something is not working for somebody and they're doing OMAD, I would say I don't recommend it. So that's where I'm coming from. If you want to do some fasting, some like 24-hour fast here and there or whatever, and that's fine for most people anyway. But I would say on the days that you're eating, getting in at least 2 meals is going to be important. Wendy says, I eat very small meals 4 times a day, high fat, moderate protein, satiated all day. Wendy, are you a post weight loss surgery person? I'm going to guess that is why you're eating 4 meals a day. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. It might be kind of a personal question, but if somebody is post weight loss surgery, they may not be able to get in the meals that they need to in 2 to 3 meals. And so that going to 3 or 4 meals is beneficial. I think for the average human who has not had, for the average human who has not had weight loss surgery, I think 2 to 3 meals is probably optimal if someone is trying to either lose weight or maintain a weight loss. But if 4 meals works great for you, great. But are you getting at least 30 grams of protein in each of those 4 meals would be the question I would ask. So there's something in our body called muscle protein synthesis that happens. So muscle protein synthesis is the process of us converting, trying to like make this a simpler explanation. We need muscle protein synthesis to happen in our body for our body to rebuild muscle. So, we're always losing some muscle. We're always breaking down a little bit. We need to build back up. So we need to experience something called muscle protein synthesis on a semi-regular basis. Optimally, at least 2 times a day. And to hit optimal muscle protein synthesis, there is a trigger. So you can think about it like all the protein we eat is like the wiring in our house. But until we get the right, there's one amino acid called leucine, and you can think of leucine as the light switch. So unless you get enough leucine, even if all the wiring is connected and you're getting enough protein over the course of the day, if you're not flipping the light switch, it's not signaling your body to get the proper amount of muscle protein synthesis. And so we need to hit a threshold of leucine to trigger muscle protein synthesis. And that threshold, and that threshold varies a little bit depending on the protein source. But a good safe bet is somewhere between 25 and 35 grams of protein from animal-based whole foods. So that would be somewhere between 3 and 5 ounces of meat, as an example, depending. Like if it's like chicken breast, it's probably 3 is going to do it. But if it's like ribeye, you might need more, like 4 or 5. But you want on average about 30 grams of protein from each feeding. So if you're eating 4 times a day, totally fine. So let's say you're eating at like 8 a.m., 8, 9, 10, 12, 8, 12, 4, 8, 8, 12, 4, 8. So those are 4 windows, 4 hours apart. And you're eating 30-ish grams of protein at each of those meals, then you're getting what you need there. Now, if you're not doing that, but you're getting 30 grams of protein at meals 1 and 3, so, you have coffee with cream in it and a little bit of protein in the morning, you're not going to trigger muscle protein synthesis with that, but that goes into that fills your protein cup, right? So you got a little extra protein, but you're not going to trigger muscle protein synthesis. But then at the second meal, you have 40 grams of protein. Boom. You got one hit that day, right? Now, then maybe at your next meal, you have just kind of a small meal. And so that doesn't hit it. All right. So that doesn't hit it. But then at your fourth meal, you got 45 grams of protein. Okay. Boom. So you got your 2 protein feedings in the day. So that's good. So if you're going to eat 4 times a day and you're not above 30 grams of protein at each one, I would make sure though that you're getting it at least 2, and that those 2 are at least 4 hours from each other, because there's a bit of a refractory period. So you need a break. So if I were doing like 30 grams of protein at my first meal, and then 2 hours later I had another 30 grams of protein, and then those don't count separately, right? And actually they don't even count together. So if it's like 15 and 15, not getting there. You need it at one meal, like one time. So if I lost anybody in that explanation, please let me know. But there are, just for optimal eating, you need a few things. And one of them is to make sure you're getting your protein muscle synthesis windows met. Janelle got her labs book. Woo! That's exciting. So yeah, I'm a bit of a protein nerd these days. I really like thinking about optimizing protein. And I think as long as we're getting anywhere from 1.2 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of reference body weight, we're probably pretty good in terms of getting our minimums met. But I certainly wouldn't want anybody to be below that. But above, there are reasons to be above that as well. Oh, good. Okay, Maria, I'm glad that was helpful for you. I get so thirsty when I talk to you guys. And then I feel the need to comment on it every time I need to take a sip of water. It's just the way it goes sometimes. I've been experimenting with pumpkin things. Nothing to report yet. But do you guys know the trick to making any pumpkin amazing? Take a can of pumpkin. So any recipe you're doing that calls for a can of pumpkin, cook the pumpkin. So open the can, put it in a saucepan, and cook some of the water out of it. It'll turn like a darker brown, from an orange to a little more brown, and it'll get a little more concentrated. You just cook it on like medium heat for about 10 minutes, and it really intensifies the flavor. It's such a good hack. So if you're doing pumpkin pie or pumpkin anything you're using a can of pumpkin in, if you cook that pumpkin first on the stovetop for about 10 minutes and let a lot of the water steam out, the end result of whatever you're making it with turns out so much better. And it also is a great thing in that process if you want to throw the spices and the sugar in, because then those will cook in as well. And so they're great. David says bake fresh pumpkin if you can. For some recipes, David, I'll say. But do you know that canned pumpkin isn't really pumpkin? It's a combination of squashes they've decided is optimal for the pumpkin flavor. And I think that cooking fresh pumpkin can be so much better. I totally agree with you in some circumstances, but it's less consistent because some pumpkins have more flavor. Some pumpkins have less flavor. Some are waterier. So there you go. Terry, so if you want a consistent effect then, but if you know what you're doing, David, if you are a good cook, then you go for that fresh pumpkin. Absolutely. If you're only an iffy cook, you might want the consistent thing that the recipe will always work out. Terry says, I enjoy occasional butternut squash. To me, it tastes like sweet potato with much less carbs. Yep, it's like half the carbs, I think, of sweet potato. And butternut squash is delicious. If you, Terry, go find some kombucha squash. Okay. Not kombucha like the tea, kombucha squash. If you can find it, it's even better than butternut squash. Just saying. You can also freeze the puree after baking for storage. Yep. Oh, great, David. Okay, yeah. Yeah, David, if you're somebody that's good at cooking, which you probably are if you're using fresh pumpkin to bake with, then you know, like you can taste and be like, oh, this is a little less flavor. I'm going to need a little more spice. Oh, this is a little watery. I'm going to need to add more of this, right? If you're a good cook, then yeah, then you do that fresh pumpkin. Dedger asked, how much salt and protein a person should take born with one kidney? Well, that is something they're probably going to want to double check on with their doctor because I am not one. But as far as I know, people with one kidney do just fine with salt and appropriate amounts of protein. And certainly eating within that sufficient protein window that I mentioned earlier is going to work for anyone as long as your kidney is functional. It's not a high protein diet. And for the most part, as long as you have one functional kidney, as far as I know, you should be good with that. But always in any circumstances like this, check with your doctor and double check that it's okay for you. Because one, I don't know who you are. Two, I'm not a doctor. Three, I'm certainly not your doctor. I'm nobody's doctor. And you always want to double check because there might be things about your kidney specifically that I have no idea about. So, but the average human with only one kidney, as long as it's functional and healthy, should do just fine with appropriate amounts of salt and protein. You don't have to go super high on them, but certainly the sufficient amount will still be important. Yeah. Did you guys know the older you get, the more protein you need? Indeed. A lot of us tend to think that only the youngins need protein, but in fact, we've developed something called anabolic resistance as we age, which means that we do less with the protein we have. So we're going to need to add more protein. So one of the things that I think is important as we get older, and by older, I mean our 30s. No, I don't mean our 80s, is that we lose the taste for meat a little bit. I notice this in older people that sometimes they are less hungry for meat than they used to be. And so I think if you're not yet older, and this is not true of everybody, so just saying, but if you're younger, just get used to eating a lot of meat now. If you're in your 30s, if you're in your 40s, get used to eating the amount of protein that you need so that you can continue to be healthy. And then you get used to it as part of your routine. And then you aren't then 60 or 70 trying to double the amount of protein you eat because you haven't been eating enough all these years and you're trying to catch up. Dedger says, I just found out I have one kidney at the age of 53. All right. Well, that would be shocking to find out, wouldn't it? Yeah, I would definitely, check in with your doctor, but one functional kidney is still one functional kidney. And like I said, the amount of protein I talked about, 1.2 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of reference body weight. So that's kilogram, not pounds. So if you need to do the conversion of that, divide that number by 2.2 and then you'll get. So here, here's my phone. Hold on. I'll open my phone. All right. So 1.2 divided by 2.2. So that's 0.55. 0.55 to 0.82 grams per pound of reference body weight. And what do I mean by reference body weight? Reference body weight, you could just think of it like target weight or goal weight. Or if you imagined what you'd weigh if you were very, very lean. So it's kind of a stand-in for lean weight. And usually a lot of people these days, as we like being a little thicker, our goal weight might be more than that reference weight, right? So like my reference weight based on sort of charts and things says that I should maybe be like 150, but I'm more comfortable at 160-ish. So that's just, we all have our preferences. So yeah, so you do you. I'm not currently at 160, by the way. It's about 10 pounds away. So I guess I should say I would be more comfortable. But, you know, we all know, like, at where we've been in our past, what we think we want to weigh. And you get close to it and you're like, this doesn't look like what I thought this would look like. Gravity has been a little harsher on me than when I was this weight when I was 22. Things were not in the same location. Yeah, it's the way it goes. But Maria says, wow, could never figure out that gram per weight. Oh, no problem. Yeah. So it's one. So all science speaks kilograms. And just so you know, 1 kilo, so the conversion is 2.2. So 1 kilogram, no, sorry, 1 pound is 2.2 kilograms. So anytime somebody says something to you in kilograms, just divide by 2.2. So if I say, like I said, 1.8 kilograms, if you're like, what is that in pounds? Just divide that number by 2.2 and you'll get that number in pounds. So there you go. If you go online too, there's a lot of calculators where you can enter one and you can get the other. So there you go. All right. All right, we're going to wrap it up in a minute, but any other questions people have, I am here for. Next week is Thanksgiving. How the heck did that happen? I don't even know. And so if you want to get no, that's the wrong book. If you want to get Our Holiday Table, there are some really great recipes in there. I've got sweet potato, mock sweet potato, squash puree. I've got Nisha's cornbread. We've got Nisha's cornbread dressing. We've got cooking a turkey. We've got cooking Cornish game hens. We've got pumpkin soup. We've got cranberry cream pie. We've got chocolate pie. We've got sour cream coffee cake. There are a ton of recipes in there. We've got little Christmas trees you can make with your kiddos. We've got brie and bacon recipes. So many good recipes. So if you want to get that and you want the physical book, just check the box that you want the digital copy as well. It's $3 extra and you get a digital copy as well as the physical book mailed to you. So you might get the physical book before Thanksgiving, but I can't guarantee it. But you'll have the digital one. And then before Christmas, you'll have the physical book. And so you can have a fabulous Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday. There's also a couple of Hanukkah recipes in the book as well. Not kosher for the kosher people, sorry. But there are like some latkes and brisket. And so if you want to try some other cultures, they're in there. My mom's family is Jewish, so we do both. Anyway, so if you are interested in some good eating over the holiday season, there will be some good recipes for you in there. Like I said, we don't give you macros. We're kind of like, look, you don't have to count macros today, but everything is absolutely low carb and definitely keto friendly. So hopefully it will suit your needs. All right, guys, have a fabulous night. I will see you next week. And we'll be just right before Turkey Day for those of us in California, not just California, the United States. For the people watching from Canada and other countries, sorry, we get a little obsessed about Thanksgiving. It's a thing, but we'll be done with it in about a week and a half. All right, bye, guys.